Ready. And we're now live on YouTube, and now I'm going to open the doors. And that's it. We're live on both platforms now, so no swearing. There could be kids watching. So we'll just let the room fill up now. We'll give it till 1 minute past because I can see that there's already people joining. So yeah, good. Give it a couple, 30 more seconds, and then we'll kick off. For those of you that have joined by YouTube or by Zoom, a big, massive, warm welcome. You can see I'm a thorn between 3 rose bushes today. I'm in the middle of, it depends on where you're looking at, but I'm definitely in the middle of 3 lovely gentlemen. Okay, so we will, oh, there's a couple more joining, last minute rush. Everybody wants to be in the webinar room. Social distancing applies. Okay, so we'll start now. So big, massive warm welcome. If you're joined on YouTube Live or by Zoom itself, a big warm welcome wherever you are. So today we're going to do Optex Part 2 or Part 2. So those of you that watched the first webinar, it was a very successful webinar. So we decided to run another second part to talk about the Optex Redwall SIPs, IR active beams and laser. And we'll also do a Part 3 next week, hopefully. Today I'm joined by Matthew, myself, Dave, CTO DVS, another Matthew and Neil Foster. So Matthew, Neil and Dave. So it's a very handsome team of gentlemen that are going to assist you today. So again, Optex, if you don't know who they are, they're the sort of world's innovative technology in sensing. Japanese company, and they do make the best optics by far for external detection. There's a lot to their range. If you didn't see last week's webinar, I suggest you go and watch it because it was based around the sort of eco offering of the range, whether it's wired or wireless, with different technologies, whether it's dual techs or PIRs, and then dual zones and different fascias, different fitments, etc. So there was a product for every need. What we're going to talk about today is the more commercial products, again, the Redwall SIPs. So those of you that probably Optex are synonymous with the SIP, or definitely the Redwalls anyway, and then when they do the Redwall and the SIP, the IP version. So the Redwall is a very stable product. It's been used for many, many years. We probably all used one at some point in our career, and those of you that still use them will agree that it's a very robust, it's a fit and forget technology. As long as you fit them and set them up correctly, they'll last many, many, many years. In fact, I've seen ones that predate even me probably out there. Then we'll talk about the active beams that are becoming more and more popular. We've also got a set to protect DVS's property here because they offer something that traditional PIR detectors don't offer. And then we'll move on to the very, how can I say this? The laser technology is not, it's very complex in a technology, but very simple. And once you know how to use and implement it, it's very, very effective. So again, we're going to hand over to Matthew, if you're okay to, oh, he's already shared his screen. So Matthew, you okay to take us through the slide deck? I'll jump in and anyone feel free to jump in. If you've got any questions, ask them, I'll try and answer them live. And if not, email webinar@dvs.co.uk after, where we can pick up any questions and we can also share the slide deck. And if you want any of the Optex contact details, let me know and I'll happily share that with you also. So I'm going to hand over to you, Matthew. Big thank you for all 3 of you for joining me today, where we'll run through this hopefully very beneficial Part 2.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Dave, for the opportunity again. What success last week was as well. I think currently it's 700 odd hits on the YouTube channel as well. So check that out on the DVS YouTube channel. And yeah, this is Part 2 of 3 product overviews. Nothing too heavy, nothing too technical today, just to let you know what is out there and what you can talk to your client base about. Really, when I joined the company a couple of years ago, everyone had heard of Optex Redwall SIPs and everyone had heard of our active beams. An idea, for example, people didn't know we did wire-free beam towers, for example. You know, still under the impression you still had to run a cable out to an outbuilding or whatever to cover it. You don't need to do that, for example. So what we're going to do today, as I say, is just go through the product range, and let you know a little bit more about what we do. And then, of course, we can speak to DVS for any next steps. But we're joined by Neil as well today, Matt, our marketing man as well. So between the four of us, there's not a lot you can't get sorted out, okay?
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so what we do is follow on from last week and just do a sort of build up of how you would look at a site when you're going through it. This will take about half an hour of your time today. We'll have 15 minutes at the end for any questions you might have for us, and we'll go from there. And as I say, you can contact us afterwards as well, no problem. So as I say, you turn up to a site, a typical commercial site, for example, and try and think of it on your residential terms as well for your client base. The idea really is that you can re-engage with your existing client base as well as walk onto a new site and have some ideas and be able to say yes to any of their requirements. So if you think about that, any requirements your customer may have, you can say yes to, because Optex will be able to look after their external and internal detection requirements, okay? So we'll just give you a few ideas today how we would implement those. So your normal site, you walk on site, you've got an issue to look after. You might start looking at different types of technology. So we've got our red scan lasers here, an extremely popular product that we use. Now, just to let you know a little bit about the lasers, there is actually some free online training we provide, about half an hour of your time. You can do that anytime, night or day. It's certificated. And then after that, once you're certificated, you can then gain the Red Scan Manager software, which enables you to set up and commission your laser, and indeed go back to it if you have any commissioning or servicing in the future. So this is all free of charge. This is all stuff you should take on board, especially when you may or may not at the moment have a little bit of spare time. Half an hour of your time, and we can send that to you. Again, just ask.
And I'd say it's definitely beneficial to do that training because, you know, you want to deliver the best to the customer from the product, and you also want to not only deliver the best to your customer, you don't want to be going back on service calls, etc. So it's that first time, you know, professional service that you want to offer. And like you said, with the spare time people have got now, it's a very good time to get on board and do that quick training session, as you said.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Absolutely, it's all about, if you can set these up right first time, as Dave said, you literally screw them to the wall, commission them, and that's it. You shouldn't have to go back. You should just see them once a year, twice a year for their servicing, and that's it. So if we get it right up front, we do the correct surveys and give you the right product to use. From there, you can screw it to the wall and have some confidence that it's going to work for your client, okay? So again, yeah, have a little look and think about how you would implement these. So you've got a site there, you might think about active beams or lasers as a virtual wall, virtual ceiling line around your perimeter. You can think about fibre sense. Now next week, for example, we're going to be looking at the sort of the big boy products, if you will, the fibre sense and the spotter products, which will cover extremely large areas, up to 1.3 kilometres on the spotter, for example. The fibre sense, obviously unlimited. You can go, you'll cover things like airports or whatever. So there's lots of different applications from your back garden up to huge areas to cover. So fibre sense and spotter is next week, by the way. That's 3 of 3. Again, when you're looking for, you've got the perimeter protection, then you might look at infill, what we called infill detection areas. Remember last week we talked about having layers, zones, A, B and C. So A, think about being your perimeter, and B being your infill zones, which you would then typically use things like the Redwall SIP or the HX range. There's a new QX range which is coming out, and of course week 1, which is where your infill detectors, 12 meters, 90 degrees, 180 degrees sensors, all the ones we covered last week. Again, that's on YouTube if you want to refer back. Also think about, we get a lot of these calls as well into sales, which is people getting in through the roof aspects now. So think about covering your roof protection as well. Again, the laser is a perfect application for that. It can take care of things like a pigeon landing on the roof. All the things that you think may be a problem are not if it is set up correctly. And of course, always we have our internal range of PIRs and dual techs for you, up to grade 2 and grade 3. Then you've got the spotter. We have drone detection, and we're going to cover all of this next week for you. Very interesting one next week for you. But just to let you know what sort of products we do. Okay. So there we are. That's how you kind of look at a site when you're pulling up, and you can think about every aspect you can cover for your client. So the first one along, Neil, passive infrared red walls, along with intruder and CCTV. What sort of applications would you use these for?
Yeah, so the SIP red walls, or the red walls as people used to know them in the past, the white cast aluminium units. Obviously now we've upgraded them back in 2009, I think it was now. Usually these products are used commercial kind of applications, 30 meters upwards. So we do a various different range of passive infrared, 30 by 20. So it looks out 30 meters by 20 meter spread, 4010s, 44s. So the idea is you can pick your product for the application. The one key thing with the passive infrared detectors, you need to make sure that they are set up correctly. So again, Matt mentioned the online training that we can do with the red scans. There's also online training that we can do for the SIPs. Key part to these are to get the walk tester and the area viewfinder. That enables you to set them up and make sure they are looking at the correct area. Advantage of passive infrared is it's a single point sensor, so you've just got one cable to install there. Reliable detection, it's not going to get false alarms from light level changes, insects flying around, things like that. You do need to be careful though that you can get false alarms on them if you do have a high volume of animals that are in there. It's more, this product's always been designed to be working with CCTV, so it's a visual verification tool. If you get a lot of animals in a particular area, it's not dissimilar to somebody trying to crawl through a particular area. The red wall's always been designed to pick that up. We do have a product range, the ones that you've already mentioned in the BX, the VX, the HX, that do have small animal tolerance in them. But typically these are deployed on commercial applications, hooked into the CCTV. With the SIP range, we've introduced different zones. So for example, the 100-meter unit never used to comply with BS 8418 in the past, but now with the 3 outputs on it, you do get that compliance. The 100-meter unit will give you a creep zone detection, which is a little ball, the 100-meter unit being the unit on the right-hand side of the screen there. Gives you a little creep zone detector, which is 5 meter 90 degree, that just sits at the bottom of the detector. So that's one output. You've then got an output for your near zone, which goes up to your 50-meter mark. And then you've got a far zone, which is 50 meter to 100 meter. So now when you start introducing that into PTZ cameras, it doesn't matter where a target walks in along that 100-meter zone, you're going to get the camera spinning around to that preset and falling with that confirmation. The creep zone detector that we put on the bottom of there comes in really handy for typical application where you have a camera column installed, detector looking to the left, detector looking to the right. Traditionally, you've either got no detection installed at the bottom of that column, and anybody that knows detection will know that's a bit of a blind spot, or there'd be a short range detector that would be installed and looking down on there. It actually works out more cost effective to install the units with any of the Redwall units with a /5 at the end of the part code. Means it's got that little creep zone detector on it. Comes as standard in the 50, 30 and 100-meter detectors, and then you can also add it on as an option in the 30, 20, 40, 10 and 40 by 4.
So
It's interesting because
PoE, wired and wire-free options as well, and rail colouring on the casing if that's required for us.
Yeah, so the short range ones are all available in hardwired or wire-free. A lot of people don't know about the wire-free product. But really ideal for that site that you turn up to. You've got infrastructure on the building. You now want to add an extra detector on at the other side of the car park rather than digging up the car park. Then there's a wire-free option there. You get 2-year battery life, rated at 200 activations a day. So again, you're going to be going back and maintaining it. So every year, every 6 months, just swap the battery out for the cost of the battery, swap it out. Good reliable detection, wire-free. Again, we can assist with any wire-free site surveys that you want done on there with regards signal strength, just to make sure your signal strength is going to be on there. And then all the product is then available as a hardwired, what we'd class as a traditional analog detector, or it's available as an IP version as well, so you can hook it onto your CCTV network.
So if I just jump in quickly there, so definitely the creep zone is something that we promote, because if you imagine fitting these on the corner of a building, you know, you've always got that sort of dead zone traditionally where somebody could get underneath and cut through the cladding or smash through a window or a door, you know, and they've proven, you know, they're worth their weight in gold essentially for that sort of trap protection. And also like you just said with the IP version, the SIP IP version that we can actually hang on the back of our Hikvision NVR. So those of you that use Hikvision, I know there's customers out there that are using this integration now, but it allows you to add these recorders, power them with PoE, and add them directly to an NVR, and you've got the cause and effect within the NVR itself. So it minimizes the cabling and obviously all of the infrastructure that goes behind it. So it truly does become a really powerful system when you combine it with either a VMS that supports it or a Hikvision NVR that directly supports it as well via the IoT function.
Yeah, the thing to bear in mind as well with that, with the IP integration, you do get the benefit. These detectors are all designed to have reorientation alarm and anti-masking on them as well. So two common ways that somebody will try and defeat an external passive infrared is to come along during the day, put a bag or a box over the head of the unit, or try and reorientate it to make it look in a different direction. You have those as standard relay contact outputs anyway, but when you hook it into IP as well, you've got a fully monitored system. If anybody comes along with any intention of trying to defeat it, you're going to know exactly what's happened, whether they're trying to reorientate it or trying to mask the detector. So it's fully protected in that way as well.
Definitely.
And to stress again, yeah, it's very extremely advantageous to get on the online training, just to give yourself a heads up on how these work and how to commission. And you will also require for your toolbox is a SIP AT tool, SIP-AT tool, and that will enable you to commission these correctly, and they will work right first time for you. But as Neil says, always happy to do site surveys. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, walk testers are key for setting up, but also a lot of what we do is what we call false alarm reduction visits. Sometimes there's detectors that are installed that, whether it be due to change in site conditions or whether it be the original install, getting false alarm issues. Our tech support guys can go out with a SIP-AT, the walk testing part, plug it into the detector, just stand by, just listen to the audible tone coming out the walk tester, look and see what's happening in the background, and very quickly pinpoint any false alarm causes. One of the things to bear in mind is with these detectors, as long as they're set up correctly, we do false alarm reduction visits. So that would be visiting sites where there has been false alarms, and we can generally reduce false alarms by 80 to 90% just purely by tweaking the setup of the detector. Making sure that any masking areas that might need to be masked are masked out. And you do it once you get them installed, get them set up correctly, they will just sit there rock steady and just do their job for years in and years out. There's hundreds of Redwalls that are there that have probably been there as long as some people in the industry, 10, 12 years, and just sitting churning away and doing their job.
Exactly. That walk test is like invaluable, even to the point where demonstrating it here when we got customers coming in, we have a lot of Redwalls fitted around our compound, and just showing the difference of where you think the PIR covers to putting the test tool on it to show where it actually covers is phenomenal. That without it, you're just shooting fish in a barrel effectively. So I can't sing enough how much you need that tool to deliver that effective detection pattern. Without it, it is just hit and miss, and you will generate the service calls, and the customer experience will be negative because of the amount of false alarms and detection overspill outside of the area that you want to cover. Is like you said, definitely buy one at least and share it around.
And also online, we've got a YouTube channel as well, and there's a 20-minute tutorial on there. There's a 3-minute version and a 20-minute involved tutorial. So there's always help online. If that's whatever way you prefer it, we can assist you get this set up correctly. Okay. But every car forecourt you walk on, look up and you'll see a Redwall.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay, so next one along, we move on to our LiDARs, our laser range. We've got two models. We've got the 2020, which is basically 20 meters by 20 meters. Now think of a virtual wall, virtual ceiling application. And we've also got the big brother to that, which is called the 3060. And that is 30 meters left, 30 meters front, 30 meters to the right, or that can be up to 50 meters in a radius as well, and a 190-degree angle on that. 90-degree angle on the 2020. But these are extremely popular part of our detection range. And the 2020 there, the one that you see in front of you, again, that can be rail coloured, obviously apart from the window at the front, but it can be rail coloured, and there's also a flush bracket you can utilise if you want to flush these into a ceiling, for example. But you can see by the pictures there, think of these are museum applications, for example. You think about an orangery window or the side of a building. We've got these deployed in the metro, for example, for various reasons. I'll just flick through now to show you the slides. So again, and we've got outputs on these. So just if you have got PTZ cameras, for example, and you need the detector to pick up a certain area that the perpetrator might be entering your grounds, the detector will pick it up and it will give you the outputs, and the PTZ can then move around and look at what it needs to. So Neil, from here, again, what sort of applications might you use these on?
Yeah, so just going back to the technology quickly, Matt, before we move on to that. The technology in the laser, it uses time of flight technology. So we've actually got a laser head that's pulsing laser out. The idea being it's spinning around on the 3060 version, a 30-meter radius, 190 degrees. We pulse laser out as it hits a target or a background, we get a reflection from it. The benefit in doing that is we know exactly how far away a target is from the head of the unit. When we then spin around, we take a sample every quarter of a degree. It's sorry to go through this, it's just important to understand how this technology works. So as we go through spinning a cycle every quarter of a degree, we then know exactly how far a target is away from the head of the unit. We then know exactly where through the cycle of the 190 degrees that target is. And what we can also do is measure the size of the target as well, which is important. So we can filter out small activations, from example, a bird flying through a zone. Doesn't matter how close or how far away it is, we always know how far away it is. We can then always calculate the size of it, so we can concentrate just purely on the target size that we want, i.e. human being creating alarm activations. The other thing that does is it actually gives us the XY coordinates, which the important thing with that is where you have a 60-meter zone set up along a fence line, we can actually then give you the information to drill it down into 4 15-meter presets. So if you want very accurate information of who's just come over that fence line and where it's happened, we can either give relay contact outputs, or again, we can give IP outputs, which will then fire an activation through to a PTZ just to drill down in that. And the way that the units can be set up is we can do area allocation. So we can actually set up in 30 centimeter squares of the overall detection area, exactly preset or hotspots, as I like to call them, of exactly where you want that detection to be. So these are used in multiple applications, from residential applications where they'll be deployed horizontally. Because of the technology, we can control exactly down to the centimeter how far that detector sees and what it sees. So if we want to mask out some vegetation, for example, on a residential application, you can have it looking across the nice clean grass area. As soon as it gets towards any shrubbery that's running around the perimeter, we can stop it short at that point at any pattern that you want. So you then get very accurate information of somebody coming in over the garden, for example, onto the grass, and when they get to the grass lawn, that's where you get the activation. So it can be anywhere from there to very, very high security perimeter applications. There's a few slides that we're going to flip through just to show them deployed in different areas. Again, with the other unit, the 2020 originally did 20 meters by 20 meters at 95 degrees. On the version 3 version, on the RLS 2020S, there's 2 different versions that are available. We can actually push that out to a 30-meter radius at 95 degrees. So that one comes in really nicely for the building kind of detection. Also comes in really nicely for perimeter, where you maybe don't need the full 60 meters. So the 2 scenarios that you can see it deployed there on the left-hand side, it's deployed in what we call vertical detection. So it's just providing that vertical wall of detection. On the right-hand side, it's deployed in a horizontal detection, so it would be providing the ceiling of detection. And as we move on, you'll then see, for example, a really high net worth with all. I think this was described as Dave's house in last week's presentation by Matt.
I'm looking to build an extension now, though.
Finding it a bit smart. I think you've been watching Grand Designs a bit too much, Dave.
Yeah, George.
So you'll see in the top left-hand corner of this application, there's a little red scan that's just been highlighted there. That red scan is obviously designed to then look across that vertical wall. So can look 20 meters out or even 30 meters out, and can look up to 30 meters down towards the ground. We can set up that square, the very accurate information of where the detection area is on there. So that would be a typical vertical application for the 2020. Moving on, you then look at data centers. So there's umpteen data centers that we've done of deploying the red scan horizontally just below ceiling, and you just have it scan along under that ceiling. So anybody trying to break in, drop down into that ceiling, again, we can give you an activation on that.
As well, Neil,
yeah, I was just about to say the other interesting applications is we've actually had them in co-location data centers where we've actually deployed them under the floor. So obviously concerns void areas below data centers. Somebody's going to lift a floor tile, disappear under the floor, and then reappear in somebody else's secure area. So both vertically round the walls, horizontally above and below data centers or control rooms or any other applications. Other applications for the 2020, so this is them just being deployed vertically in warehouses. So again, we've done some interesting things with the red scans, hooking them into different VMS systems where it might be that you want to know exactly when something's getting taken off that rack in that exact area. So with the 2020, we can give you 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter preset areas. So if you want to set up presets within there for exact information of where something's been taken off a rack, we can do that. Or it could even just be any kind of logistics or storage facility and securing it. We've had applications in the past where people have wanted to separate two parts of a warehouse. So where part of a warehouse has been rented out. And again, the other thing on this as well is we've mentioned earlier on about using detection on roofs. One of the things that I'm personally seeing is there's a big increase in activations, a big increase of break-ins where people are actually trying to bridge across the detection that runs around a warehouse. All they're doing is bringing in scaffolders, ladders, going into the site next door, which maybe isn't as well protected. And then anything that's below the height of the roof, they're just bridging over it from the next door neighbour's site, coming up onto the roof, across the roof, look through the skylights, find a rack, and then just drop down onto that rack. So there's an increased amount of theft that's actually coming from breaking in through the ceiling. So deploying the 2020 above that area that you can see, mount it horizontally just below that roof and the skylight. As soon as anybody goes to drop down there, you're going to get an activation. So that's a common use for that product. We then move on to the 3060. So the 3060L can give you a 30-meter radius at 190 degrees. Or we do a 3060 SH, which we can actually extend the range on. So again, can be used vertically, horizontally, or any angle between the two. We've got the masking on this as well. So both units do masking. So if anybody tries to put a bag or a box over the unit, it will know where we can set it up so it'll know if the reorientation, so if the detection area's moved. So they all are fully protected. We've got fog algorithms in there. The red scans are not really bothered by fogs because we're only looking up to a maximum of 30 or 50 meters, not like an active beam where we might be trying to push that up to 100 meters. So when we look to start and deploy those again, on here we've got a red scan that's just actually installed on a building there, and it's designed just to cover a data center. So it's just mounted at the top there, and we just angle it down any angle that we want away from the building, and it just creates that wall of detection. So no matter where anybody's trying to break in, we will get that activation in that area.
And again, you've got the angle brackets on there as well, and the ability to rail colour as well. We get asked for that a lot with the colouring and making sure it's aesthetically pleasing. Anything to make it even look like a brick wall, for example, or foliage that can blend in quite nicely. But again, you've got the bracket on there as well, just to angle down. So 45 degrees, vertical or horizontal.
And in that type of application as well, this is where having them on a network and using the Red Scan Manager software really comes in an advantage. Obviously, a little bit of a hard location there to try and get any kind of access equipment in to get that installed. The last thing you need to, or you want to do if you need to make an adjustment on the detector, is have to be able to get up there all the time. So stick it on a network, the Red Scan Manager, give each unit its own IP address. You can just talk to them independently. So once you've actually set up that angle of detection and the way that it's looking down the side of that building, the rest of the configuration can all be done from a laptop in the office or somewhere nice and conveniently where you're not having to get up there to make configuration changes to it. Moving on to other common applications. So this is just Red Scan being mounted on a fence. So again, we're just angling it away from the fence. That could be that it's been installed to give advanced notification of somebody heading towards that fence line. It could also be, if you'd imagine an outer fence line on there, if it is a real high secure application, got an outer fence and an inner fence, just install it on the inner fence on that angle, and then just angle it down to the base of the outer fence line. Horizontal applications. So on here, we've just got it around some solar farms, just mounted horizontally, scanning out. Again, any approach detection towards those panels, we can give you an activation for that. Building detection, roof applications. So we've already kind of mentioned these being mounted internally. Again, they can be mounted externally. As Matt said earlier on, with the algorithms in there, you can filter out anything like unwanted causes from birds causing false activations. Then coming out to the fence line again. Oh, that's flipping ahead a little bit. On this application, hugely advantageous over common applications that you'd look at of active beams or fence mounted detection. There might be a car park the other side of that fence. Somebody might be able to reverse a vehicle up there and jump over the top of that fence line. With the fence mounted product, you wouldn't be able to get an activation because it just tell you somebody's cutting or climbing that. With the red scan, you can go anywhere between 4 meters and 15 meters. So you can get it up above the height of the fence, just have it looking down inside that fence line. No matter how anybody tries to get through that fence, whether it be opening the palings and climbing through, climbing over the top of the fence, or using any access equipment, you're going to get an activation. And then the other thing on that slide is, some people would look to say, well, I'll put active beams along there, but with that fence line being there, it's actually a climbing aid. So with a climbing aid, you need to keep 1.5 meters to 2 meters back from that fence line to stop anybody trying to climb on top of that fence and then jump over the active beams. The problem on that site with it being a haulage yard is, at best, the vehicles are going to reverse through the beam set and block them, or at worst, they're actually going to reverse into the beam tower and knock it over. So these kind of applications, a red scan is ideal for. You can keep it out at the fence line. We need minimal clearance between the fence line and the protected area, so they can use as much of that site as they need and still know that it's fully protected.
It's interesting because we've done a project with, like, as you said, almost in that very typical installation where we're monitoring a fence where the lorries are backing up to the fence and the people are trying to either bend the bars or climb over it because they think there's a lot of valuable equipment stored in these courier lorries and transit lorries overnight, when in fact there is nothing stored in there, but it obviously creates a lot of damage, and then the vehicle has to be taken off the road. So for the cost of doing something like that to prevent, as a preventative thing where people are trying to gain access to the back of lorries at night, you can see in laybys they generally open the doors so people can see there's nothing in the back of the lorry. You know, this will alarm the on-site security that somebody's potentially trying to get into a lorry, and they can intercept them before they make that damage that could obviously take the lorry off the road. So it's a really powerful device.
Yeah, and again with that, you're going to get the 15-meter presets as well. So where it is really tight, as soon as you get somebody trying to cut or climb that fence, going over the top of that fence, it's going to spin around to that preset and give you accurate information about what they're doing. So yeah, we've done loads of haulage sites like that in the past.
And again, think about re-engaging with your existing clients. There's a lot of dormant sites at the moment, of course, and a lot of stockpiling going on. So again, just think about, you can re-engage to your existing client base and then tell them you've got a new option for them, you know?
Definitely.
So next one then is our IR beams, our active beams range. So we do these in a wired, a wire-free and a hybrid versions, quad or dual beams. Very popular. This is how I always knew Optex from 30 years ago when I was installing, and I always had to run a cable out from someone's garden, and all the aggro and the time that went with that. We were talking about tube and batten last week, weren't we?
Yeah. For those that can remember, tube and batten, foil on windows and pressure mats.
You know, it's so easy these days. It's so easy to install and add these things to your existing intruder alarm panels and your CCTV system. So again, you can think about wire-free. We do beam towers, which are pre-built in our own warehouse in Maidenhead in the UK. And you can have sizes from 1.5, 2 meters and 3 meters in height. And they can be wall, post or floor mounted. So you really can put these beams wherever you like, but a very good option, extremely popular in our range as well. Yeah, there we go. So we've got the sizes and lengths up from 30 meters up to 200 meters. Just to bear in mind though, the wire-free version will only go up to 100 meters. 200 meters you can get for the wide range, okay? Also, just take a look at the picture there, bottom left. You can get a really quite a nice natty light fitting to go on top of your beam towers as well. And they really do look the part when they're installed in a high-end residential, which we do an awful lot of. So they do look really cool when they're fitted, those detectors, and they're doing 2 jobs as well, of course.
We've actually got a lot of those fitted around the DVS compound, actually around the back end, because traditional PIRs, the overspill was too big. Lasers were very expensive at the time, and this was like a nice, neat solution to fit, to give us that sort of 1.5 meter height where, well, we had got the 2 meter towers actually, but the 2 meter height where you can't climb over it. They got the anti-tamper, so if you try and use it as a climbing aid, it also goes off, and it does, provide that impenetrable fence. Never had any troubles with it, apart from once we had to cut a tree down because it had gone in front of the detection pattern, but that's just general maintenance. Like I said, they've been fitted for 5 years and never needed any maintenance other than cutting some trees back.
So they will. They'll sit there for years. They'll sit there for 20 years. They're still installed and working away. Battery version, 2 to 3 years you're looking at on the battery life. depending on traffic, obviously. But last week and this week really is the first two steps of thinking about layered protection externally, and just how you might now walk onto a site, or as I say, re-engage with your existing client base and give them something else to think about. So we go from the fit right up to the RLS 3060. The first 2 weeks we've carried out these webinars. We hope to do many more, by the way, but I think it's just a good grounding, and we want to get you used to seeing Dave and Neil and I, and knowing who to contact when you have a site request and any questions to ask.
There is a couple of questions that I've had. One is, what is your preference? Like, if the area is prone to fog, would these be susceptible to that? And then after it was, would your preference then be the laser?
So, sorry, I was going to jump in there, Matt. It really depends on the application. So, with the active beams, when we're looking at the fog, if you're looking at a long zone, then you do have potential of fog starting to obscure the zone. They've all got environmental outputs, so some people will use that environmental output as a flag. So if you get fog build up on a site, it'll flag up an environmental. It will then let you know, so they might start doing routine patrols with the cameras, for example. It depends on the site application. There's 3 different models that we do in the active beams. If you look up to the QDM range, with the QDM range, we've got your transmitter, which talks to your receiver, but you've also got another set of optics that actually talks back to the transmitter. And basically what that's there to do is, as it sees fog build up on that site, the receiver starts losing its signal strength from the IR beam that's coming to it. It will then start talking back to the transmitter and say, look, I'm starting to get some interference. Can you crank your power up? So the idea with that is we can actually crank the power up in foggy environments to maintain that zone for longer for you. But it depends on the application that you're looking at. If you were looking at 60-meter coastal environment, I do quite a few high security applications where they've tried active beams in the past around I can't name the facility, but high security facilities that are near to coast. And we've actually done some trials with active beams and done some trials with the red scans. The red scans will always outperform active beams just because the algorithms. We're only ever looking at 30 meter usually with the red scan. We're looking at that shorter distance. So there's no environmental causes that you get with that. It tends to be with the red scan, not so much fog or more steam or snow. If you get really heavy snow with any active beam system, you're going to start and get it being obscured. So it really depends on the application. We're more than happy to talk about different applications, and then it really comes down to the amount of coverage and the cost. If you look at the cost of a red scan versus an active beam, if you're looking at a perimeter application where you are looking at 50-meter zones, for example, and you are looking at having a 2-meter tower, by the time you start and build all that cost equipment up, between the red scan and active beam, it's not too much difference. So if it was a really foggy environment and you're only going to be looking at maybe 50-meter zones, then it might be an idea to then start and look at the red scans versus over the active beams.
Okay, I think that's
more than happy to go into more details, to go through specific projects offline if required.
There was another part to it as well. Somebody's asked, is there a maximum degree angle that these can be fitted? I guess they mean if one's up there and one's down there, what's the maximum tilt that you could have if you on a, say, like a slope, say like embankment, or would you look at the product
on the active beams? Is that question for Dave? Yeah. So on the active beams, you tend to get around about 5-degree plus and minus adjustment on it. So gradual slope, yeah, you're fine with that. The thing to bear in mind between the two technologies, so active beam is point-to-point beam. So you're going from point A, the transmitter, to point B, the receiver. The thing that you have to bear in mind is if you've got any undulating ground level between those two, because that's potentially a crawl through area. So that's typically where the red scan will win hands down all the time. You mount that at a minimum of a 4-meter mountain height. You have it looking down to the ground level, and then it'll just follow the contours of that ground and those undulations. So if it is slopes, if it's just a general gradual slope, and it's a constant slope as opposed to undulations in it, active beam will work fine. If it's something that's got more than that, then yeah, I'd probably look more towards the red scan for that.
Brilliant. I think that's answered everything so far, and I think some of the other questions we'd answered as we've gone through, and I typed away. That's why I went on mute. So that's it as far as I'm concerned. We've answered all the questions. So hopefully, yeah, we're about 40 minutes. That's about right. So everything has hopefully been answered. So if there's any more, well, you can see Neil and Matthew's contact details there in the slide. So if you've got anything you want to ask directly to those guys, you don't want to go through DVS, please use their emails. If you want to go through DVS, webinar@dvs.co.uk, or speak to your relevant salespeople. I can't thank you both enough, and Matthew's gone on, lost his video, but I can't thank you all enough for joining me today. The response has been very professional, and if you didn't learn anything, I'd be very surprised. Every day is a school day as far as I'm concerned, so thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully this will put some seeds that can grow in people's minds, and they can offer that to their customer base and really start to offer, you know, that enhanced perimeter protection.
Lovely stuff. And thank you for the opportunity again, Dave. And we'll be seeing you next week.
Yeah, definitely. Stay tuned, and we'll do part 3 next week. So thanks, guys, for joining me. I think other than that, use our contact details, and we'll see you all then. So thanks, guys.
See you. Thank you.
Bye. 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 Bye.